Emily Meade, welcome to An Actor's Affairs. How are you doing?
I'm I'm okay. I'm good. I went boxing today, so that puts me in a good mood. How are you?
Badass. Look, I'm
Yeah,
great.
it's
I'm
very new.
honestly like I when I say this, I mean it with every word of sincerity. You're one of the greatest talents. It's been such an honor. We spoke off air that we had met before, but I had a lot of friends that were on Boardwalk. My buddy Shay is like one of my best friends, and that's where I discovered you. And there's a reoccurring theme on this podcast is the separation between good acting and great acting. And good actors are people that can just play a personality and do that. And great actors are people that make choices. And I love you and your career because you make such distinct choices. And, I think you had an episode or two of Boardwalk Empire, and you stood out so well in everything you've been in. Like The Deuce, Trial by Fire, Nerve, Leftovers. It's like you fucking crush it, man. You're a superstar.
Thank you. Jeez Louise. That just made my day even better. So thank you.
I
Thank you
mean
so
every
much.
word of it, man. I mean it's incredible. It's truly watching your career is like watching justice prevail, and I don't say that very often. I think I've said that to Chris Bauer, who did your show with you, and
Oh my
and
god, yeah.
yeah,
Amazing.
love Chris,
Yeah,
total homie.
yeah,
But
yeah.
let's start from the beginning of that. It's cool. You grew up in New York, right?
I did. I did. Grew up in New York City, born and raised.
How was
Yep.
that?
It's funny. People always ask, if it was different or weird, but obviously that's all I knew. So
Yeah.
it was all I knew. I always longed to grow up in the suburbs, which was the opposite of
Really?
most
I'm
people.
always curious because it's for suburb kids, it's the city.
Exactly. But in the movies, it was like the cheerleaders and the football team and all that kind of exciting, titillating stuff was
Yeah.
very suburban. And I didn't, maybe my high school, I think, had like a bowling team. Like
Really?
yeah, it was an arts high school in New
Oh, you
York.
went to LaGuardia, right?
I went to LaGuardia, and also
Yeah.
there's not like football fields all over the place. Like it's just
No.
not a. I wanted that Friday Night Lights, even though I've never seen it, but I wanted that Friday Night Lights experience or whatever. So, but yeah, it was. I think it makes you grow up quicker in certain ways, obviously, and then probably delays your maturity in certain ways. I think
Interesting.
it's
Because
a unique.
every like 8-year-old kid I meet in New York that's alone is like on a cell phone, like get the fuck out of my way. You know what I mean? It's so
Yeah.
badass. I'm like, I want to be like that. So what I'm curious, like, are your parents artists? Where did this come from?
Basically my parents were like bartender, are interested in the arts. My dad's a huge movie buff. My mom also likes movies. They were met as like 20. My mom was 23, my dad was 26. They were bartenders, and they got headshots, and my dad took acting classes. They were interested in the arts, got pregnant with me, and then obviously that took over a lot of their life, and they didn't fully actively pursue it, but I was raised with a lot of artistry.
Yeah.
My mom would like bartend on Monday nights, and then on Monday nights that was because my dad would usually work at night. He was a bouncer at bars, and on Monday nights would be our night to like he would show me different movies that like I remember my friends would come over and they weren't even willing to watch a black and white movie, but my dad was like we shared a taste, or he designed my taste, either one. I
So rad.
grew up with a love of that kind of stuff. So they were artists, even if not by profession. But
That's
yeah,
amazing. And I'm curious, then, at what point did the activation, like the creativity bug, where did that come in?
pretty. I mean, as long as I can remember, I always had that combination of I love movies. I wanted to create. I wanted to invent things. I wanted to write things. I wanted to draw things, and I wanted to change the world. And I also,
Yeah.
which is maybe the sign of like something wrong, but I also always felt like I was magic, or like I had something magical
Yeah.
to do. So for me, movies and acting just seemed like the most obvious thing, because that's what I saw. I would watch movies and I wanted to do that in some way. And I loved people. I also, maybe growing up in New York, like being on the subway, I was exposed to so many different types of characters. So I liked to mimic people, and I was very interested in that. So pretty much my whole life, that was the overall trajectory and goal.
Badass. I'm curious, like when you started getting into those things, were the parents receptive? Because I feel like when you have artist parents, it goes one or two ways. Like that's cool, or it doesn't work out well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they were very supportive. I think probably partly because they did love the arts, but they hadn't done it, so they didn't know how fucking horrible it can be or how it was. So I think if they were like, for me with I'm like, I think about it all the time. I don't have kids yet, but I want to. And when I think about I'm like, I don't know if I'd be able to let them do it. Like, I don't know because of what, the trauma of it all. Whereas with my parents, they had that love of it without it being crushed. So they were, they didn't even, and we were in New York. Like, it was shocking to me when I got older and met actors whose parents like were, didn't get it and thought they should be actors instead. That was not my experience at all. And they were, very on board from a very young
Shout out to Emily's parents, man. Badass. Yeah. That's awesome. So then what were the steps for you, because like obviously living in a city like New York, there's no shortage of like children's youth theaters and like I went to Strasbourg at NYU. There's like a Strasbourg children's program. Did you get involved in any of that?
Yeah, not on that. That's very elite. That's good. That's I didn't.
Here I am without a job doing a podcast.
Exactly. It all equals to the same fucking place. But I went to Da. I don't know if you know Da. Here we are, the Big Sing Little Kids, the Big Picture. It was like a musical theater thing. I auditioned for the company. You could go like into the company. I did not get into it. And then I was very young, and then I did a few classes there, and then I did this thing with my friend that was actually really, when I look back on it, it was probably life-saving in a lot of ways. From when we were like 8 to 13, a woman who was actually also a certified therapist, we basically like write our own plays and perform our own plays.
That's amazing.
And, we wrote this play called The Puberty Club, even though we were like 8. So like puberty, I don't know if we were fully there yet, but like we would write out from our own experiences and perform it. So that was a great practice in creativity. And then from there, my goal was always to get into LaGuardia, the performing arts school. Yeah. So I auditioned for it and I got into it. And then that was like my first kind of formal acting training.
And when you were doing these plays, like with the therapist, was it full on productions or scene work or?
Full productions. I mean, I guess that's one of the perks of New York City. Like I don't really remember. I don't quite understand what her connections were. I know she was sort of an actress or had been an actress or still was an actress and therapist. And like somehow she got us, we did a performance at the Cherry Lane Theater. Like,
amazing.
But it wasn't like people were buying tickets. It was like our families were at,
but whatever.
Stage at the Cherry Lane Theater. And so, it was very, I don't know how she managed. I don't feel like you could do that anymore somehow, but it was like the 90s. I don't know. But so we did do performances in real theaters and it was all people we knew, but that was a very exciting thing to do and very satisfying.
And so I'm curious, when you were on stage at Cherry Lane or whatever respective theater, is that when you felt that cosmic, like, this is it, this is what I'm going to do feeling?
I'd say I felt it even before, probably.
Oh, wow.
But I mean, it's ironic because, and I've talked about this before, it's not new, but I am obviously mostly, or pretty much only known for like my, not just dramatic, but like tragic work. But what originally drew me into acting was comedy and like SNL and Lucille Ball. And so for me, what made me fall in love with performing was making people laugh. Like, there was definitely drama in my household and all that shit. And I remember, like, I have memories of making my parents laugh at like 4, like having some sort of comedic timing.
Yeah.
And that the satisfaction of making people laugh being so overwhelming for me. So I feel like from the beginning of making people laugh, I felt like, oh, this is what I'm meant to do. And then, being on stage and anything further for that, it was not even like, it was just like, of course, there was never, until I became an actor and it was really hard, there was never like a question or a doubt about it. It was just like, I'm going to be a famous actor.
Obviously. And I didn't know, of course. And here we are. But I'm curious. Hey, we're all burning to the middle. It's what we do. But I'm curious, with comedy, I didn't know that about you. Was there ever like a stand-up impetus or was it more SNL sketch sort of?
SNL, I mean, I live a life with no regrets, but I kind of wonder if I should have looked into that more. I did not. What I thought was going to happen was I was going to be the youngest ever cast member on SNL.
Yeah.
I don't really know why I needed to like be the most of something, but I knew Eddie Murphy was like 18, so I probably would have been illegal to do it under 18, but I was going to do that and then it was going to be the reverse basically of what actually has happened. I was going to become a famous SNL star and then eventually prove myself as a dramatic actress.
Yeah.
It was the first where I only did drama, and now I'm like desperately trying to do comedy. But no, I didn't ever do stand up. I didn't even do like the improv route or anything.
Yeah.
I didn't understand actually how you get on SNL. And also, I would say I got which is probably why I did drama. I definitely was a very troubled teen, and I think I just like I kind of carried my fantasy of what my career would be into actually doing it. I didn't like learn along. By the time I was a teenager, I wasn't learning the steps that you take of like, oh, well, if you want to do comedy, you have to do improv. And if I was just like, I'm gonna be a star, so I didn't. And going to performing arts school, we knew that at the end of senior year, you could audition for a showcase. And if you got in, you could audition for agents. So that was just sort of like, that was what I was aiming towards. And I wasn't thinking beyond that. So it wasn't until I was already acting that I was like, oh, I guess I'm not going to be on SNL. And then I learned like, oh, that's because I didn't take the route that you take to do that.
And having had a lot of friends that went to LaGuardia, I know some people can get pretty hungry early. Was like agents even before you graduated? Was that on your mind, like getting, a commercial agent at least or something like that? Or
yeah, well, at LaGuardia then it is not the case now, but it's the opposite now. But when I was there, you weren't allowed to have an agent. There definitely was kids who did, but I was so, I mean, I wanted it so bad that I was willing to like do whatever they said, and I didn't want to break rules. Also, before that, because I was so business minded, I mean, it was weird. Like, I remember watching Friends as like a 5-year-old and being like, that looks really fun, but I wouldn't want to be pigeonholed and typecast in that way. So I shouldn't do I was thinking but it was, I think, to a fault, because I think it made me turn down opportunities younger that probably would have just fucking like helped me get famous and rich or something. But, so I also didn't want to be a child actor because I didn't want to have to transition from child actor to adult actor. Little did I know that most adult actors did start as children, and like people who are getting really famous at 25 have been doing it since they were 5. Like that part I didn't understand. So I was just really rigid, and like I didn't understand the steps to I had like a delusional confidence that I just like, okay, I'm not going to start until I'm 18. So yeah, I didn't want to start acting until I was 18. And also you weren't supposed to at LaGuardia. So I did like, someone on the street came up to me to model, and I started modeling when I was like 15, and I did do one indie movie through that, but I was like, well, this is okay.
Yeah.
Cause whatever. But no, I didn't officially get an agent until I was 18.
And well, how was your experience at LaGuardia? Because I know, like, I don't know, I went to NYU, and being surrounded by performers can be fucking exhausting. And I like, if anything, it made me more disillusioned with it. What was it a good experience there? Because like wanting to get into this place and, having this idea of what it is in your mind, and then getting there, things can change. How was it for you?
With LaGuardia, I think I had that disillusionment once I became a professional actor. I think with LaGuardia, it was weird. The time I was, and like the teachers even said it was like nothing they'd ever seen. I think there was something, and I don't know what year you went to school, probably not far apart, but
I'm 31.
I'm 32. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Class of 07 or 08?
08. 08.
Okay. So we're 1 year apart, but yeah, there was something freaky about my generation, like my grade, like nobody gave a fuck, and everybody was really rebellious and really disrespectful ultimately, which was kind of realistic as far as how actors behave a lot of the time, but it was weird. It was like my good friend went to PPAS, and she had the opposite experience where she was really rebellious and everybody was like a goody two shoes and musical theater and really on top of it. Whereas LaGuardia, it was like behaving like rock star Hollywood stars while in high school. So I was actually, even though I was not the best student and not doing great, I still was able to be kind of a goody two shoes with acting, because it was I sort of saw it as like my survival ticket. I was like, that's the only way I can open my life up. So and also I was so miserable in high school and did so badly in academic classes and was just really in a bad place that I always say if I didn't have the performing arts at LaGuardia, I would have just dropped out of school. So for
Yeah.
me, it was like high school was miserable every day of my life. I hated being there, but having the acting program is the only reason I stayed.
That's incredible.
Yeah, there
And
should be performing arts in more schools.
I mean, all of arts, you know,
Yeah,
it's imperative.
yeah, I'm
Um,
art.
so when you get to the showcase and you're finally there, was that the moment you thought it would be? You know, getting all the industry folk and family, and doing your piece. How was that experience?
That was great. It was, I mean, it's so funny because I feel like, my confidence definitely deflated and got beaten up over the years of being an actor. But because I think partly I was like the star football player in that way. I was the quarterback when, like, yes, like I was considered a good actress at the showcase. Like all the agents, they like put their numbers in,
Yeah.
and like however many people are interested in, like I got all of them, and
No
like,
way.
yeah, it was cool. It wasn't that huge of amazing of agents, but it was cool.
Whatever.
It
Yeah.
was great, but I think it also misled me because I started acting thinking like this is gonna be a piece of cake, and I didn't
Yeah.
realize until a few years in that like it is not. But yeah, I got good response. None of the agents were that big, but I got someone. I think it was literally like an intern from the CW came to the showcase, and she called me directly and asked me if I wanted to come in to audition for Supergirl. They were like making a Supergirl spinoff from Smallville, and the
Yeah.
character was going to start on Smallville and then go to Supergirl. And ultimately, that was not what I wanted to do, but I was 18 and I was like, okay, obviously I should do this.
Yeah.
So I went, auditioned, and then they wound up wanting me to test. And I didn't have any sort of like agent or manager or lawyer or anything. So basically, Meg Simon, who was the head of casting at CW at the time, called me and was like, "Do you know what a test deal is?" I was like, "No." And then she recommended me to. So I got an agent at Innovative. Which I'm not now. I'm not with them anymore, but I was with them for a long time. A manager and a lawyer to like do the test deal, and then thank God I didn't get it. I tested,
Yeah.
but so I just got the agent and lawyer manager, and then didn't have to move to Vancouver for 14 years, which is what.
Yeah. God,
So,
that show had such a long ride.
yeah. Yeah.
Hey,
So,
I'm sure they're at conventions doing the thing, but that's so cool that, I mean, so when you got back, or did you have to go to Vancouver? No.
no, I
Oh,
tested in LA. I was so scared that I asked if they give you a first class ticket, and I was like, can I trade it in for 2 coach tickets so that like
bring
someone,
a homie.
my dad with me. Like I was so terrified.
Wow.
Now I can't imagine. I don't even relate to that person, but
Yeah. I'm curious though, like having that happen to you and then going to LA and growing up in New York and, having this sort of, intense high school experience. Was there ever that inkling? Because, like, in America, it's so kind of, I mean, Atlanta's opened a bit, but it's kind of binary, or LA or New York. Did you ever feel like I'm going to go give LA a try, or you were happy here?
yeah, I don't. It's so strange my relationship with LA because I think a lot of people assume I hate it because I'm from New York and I've never officially lived in LA. I don't hate LA, and I've always enjoyed it when I'm there. I think I can enjoy it because I've always had New York as my home, so I've never had that feeling that I think a lot of people get when they go to LA of like, oh God, I've lost, my feet are no longer on the ground, like I have no sense of grounding. So I do love it for what it is, and I've always been willing to move there, but I think again because the first like 3 years of my acting career was so easy and I was getting jobs so much, I didn't think I had to.
Yeah.
And then once things started slowing down, it just got, I don't know. I just basically somehow 14 years later I still primarily live in New York, but I've spent a lot of time in LA and like months at a time in LA. Um, and yeah, I still would move to LA, but I just haven't. And a lot of the shows I've been on and stuff has been in New York. So yeah,
Yeah.
basically back then I didn't see it as I had to go to LA to be an actor, and I didn't at the time have to do that.
Yeah, that's so cool. So then when you started working, was it like co-star, guest star, built up to reoccurring?
No, it was really I mean, well, yeah, the first I did the one weird movie when I was modeling when I was 15, and then I think, and then Supergirl was my first audition, and I think my second audition was this movie, Assassination of a High School President.
Yeah.
I'm sure
I,
you
I
know
remember it.
you read. I'm sure you read for
Yeah.
it. But like,
Yeah.
so like, I feel like all of my actor friends are either from Assassination of a High School President or this movie 12 I did. Like, it all came.
The wild Emma Roberts coked out movie. I totally
Yes,
remember.
yeah, it's just so fun.
Yeah.
But I feel like, yeah, Assassination, I auditioned for that, and then I didn't get the role I auditioned for, but they like wrote, so basically it was like it would have been an extra role, but they like wrote this whole character for me in it as like the drunk girlfriend, like beard girlfriend of the guy who was sleeping with his sister in it. So that was like my first audition. Then my next audition was My Soul to Take, the Wes
The
Craven.
Wes Craven one.
Got that. Then 12, Joel Schumacher got that. Like, it was kind of crazy, and it was really big directors. So it seemed like it was big directors who I think were perhaps outdated, and like we're in a different time. And like,
yeah, totally. 10 years prior would have been different,
exactly.
You know.
And they did not hit in the way as expected. But I kind of like skipped right to what felt like these star-making roles that didn't do that. So then things kind of, and I mean, Boardwalk Empire was a few years in, but it was close into that time. And but that was like after I had already had bigger roles in movies. And so then, I mean, I did do 3 Law and Orders in the beginning, but it wasn't even like my first job. It was just like for money, like within that period of time. But yeah, it was weird. I had a really weird trajectory, a lot of like false starts, and yeah.
And I'm curious, you know, like being that young kid back on the Cherry Lane stage and having what you thought might be a delusion turned into a premonition, you know, and working on all of those things. Where was your mindset at? Was it like, this is all coming true, I'm badass? Or was it like, you know, because it wasn't taking off in the way you thought, it started to bring you like, oh shit, this is gonna be tough?
Yeah, I think it took a few years, but I think it was like, oh my, like, it was the first few years were like, like, I mean, probably a lot of arrogance to it. There was but it was great. I was grateful, but also like, I never, like, it's funny and it's probably super arrogant and obnoxious, but when people talk about like imposter syndrome, I'm like, I have the opposite of imposter syndrome. I'm like, I'm successful. Like, I don't feel like an imposter at all. So when that was first happening, it felt right. Yeah, it just felt like my destiny and the right thing. And I did work really hard. So it wasn't like I was just getting it easily. But
no, you're great. It shows.
Thank you. It felt right. But then it wasn't until a few years went on and all the things did not turn into what they were supposed to. And that's when it started to hit in a different way. And then it turned into just a very different journey than I expected. So it was interesting because it was like the beginning of my career looked exactly how I expected it to. And then it quickly turned into something else that I
kind of became an indie darling for a while, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's a nice, thank you. That's a nice, I feel like I'm in a random movie. Yeah, but yes, I took a turn that I wasn't like, almost didn't have a plan B for acting. And I feel like in a way it would have been easier had I been like waiting tables and being in one-line parts and working my way up. But it was the opposite of like, I was getting cast.
You had that taste of it, and then you go back.
Do I need to wait tables? And like, I don't know what I do. So that definitely threw me for a loop.
And talk to me, like, what buoyed you during that time? Did you go back to, you know, that therapist moment of creating? Like, was that on your mind, or, you know, was
I definitely did bad behavior. I definitely, I was very distracted by boys and relationships, and I wasn't like a partier in the way of like going out to the clubs, but I was fine hanging out in bars and just sort of living the life of like a disgruntled artist. So I did also create. Writing was something I always actually, I think now looking back, I in a way am more of a writer than I am. And
because you saw you posted a beautiful poem. You got a great voice.
Thank you. When I was younger, I would write songs, I'd write poems, I'd write screenplays, I'd write stories, but I think I felt like I was supposed to act like I was like I don't know. I didn't understand how to be a writer as much. So yeah, in my early 20s, I was writing screenplays and doing all that. But I think writing got a little tainted for me by being an actor, because then I felt like I was only allowed to write screenplays versus
Yeah,
like free writing. So then I kind of
totally.
stopped doing that. So yeah, I mean, my creativity has always been like a very finicky flower. I don't know. It's always been something that like I am just innately like I feel quite creative, and everything in the world inspires me in different ways, but I've definitely struggled with figuring out where to place that and what to do with that. And sometimes I've just like burned myself. Like I'll like wake up with the fire and it'll either like burn me from the inside out, or I'll find something, I'll have like a burst of inspiration. But I didn't expect, like I didn't know I was gonna, I wasn't prepared for the struggling part. So
Yeah.
I definitely didn't probably do as much as I could have or should have with my spare time.
And what kept you anchored and buoyed, because it's so tough, to work and then not to work, and then I mean, just the fucking, when you have so much free time, especially, everyone in this pandemic can relate. It's just like, it's fucking crippling. You're living in your brain.
Yeah, I mean, I hardly did. I mean, there was definitely times where I was not doing well, and I remember times where I was like 20 years old and I'd wake up and it'd be dark and I would think that it was still the night and it was like 5 p.m. the next day.
No way.
Yeah, there was definitely it was a struggle, but I think I don't know. I mean, I think just like faith buoyed me. I mean, I wasn't raised religious in any way, but since I was a kid, I did have that like connection to something, and I did always feel deeply destined to do this, to like tell a story, to impact the world in some way. Which again, maybe is like whatever dream delusions of grandeur or whatever, but it kept me going. Like whether it was ridiculous or not, I was like, I do feel, and I've always felt confident in my talent, as obnoxious and arrogant as that might sound. Like I feel insecure in a million other ways, my looks, my coolness, my ability, but I did, like when I wouldn't get things or things wouldn't go well, it wouldn't make me question my ability to relay a character. So I think I just like the tenacity of that belief just sort of has somehow stayed, and like I have gotten positive feedback along the way, and people I know like have responded to me. Like for example, with Boardwalk Empire, I remember with that it was between like I'd gotten that role, which was only 2 episodes, and then they actually were. I don't even know if I should say the show, but basically there was a show that's been on for like 10 years that they wanted me to test for that. And through the process of that, they had been really dismissive of me and like told me I was too pretty to play a character that was troubled. Like really, it didn't seem like they believed in me for the role, but they were asking me to test because like, sure, I was one of the best options. And I remember the test date was going to overlap with the shooting dates for Boardwalk Empire. So I said, I want to do Boardwalk Empire. I really believe in that. I have
Yeah.
that. I don't think I'm going to get this thing. And I remember someone who I worked with at the time calling me up and being like, you're going to pass on the audition for this to play the hooker or whatever. And I was like, her name is Pearl. Yeah. Because I
Yeah.
know that I can really do something with this. And I know that I'm connected to this in a way that I'm not connected to that other role. And I guarantee you they would change the date of the test if they really were sure they wanted me for it. So
Yeah.
I don't know that's a tangent, but I guess it's like no matter how much I've been crushed, I still like, I don't know. I have that like I know what I know I'm supposed to say something to the world, and I know when it's time for me to say it in the way I'm supposed to say it, and I think that stayed true no matter what. And I always got positive feedback. Like you said with Boardwalk Empire, that was only 2 episodes. That's still one of the things I get like most recognized for.
I'm sure you're incredible in that. I mean,
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm sure I mean, I've heard a lot of stories about Michael Pitt, but the chemistry you guys had, it was seismic, and
Yeah.
that love, you felt it. There was just that connection there, and
Yeah.
you can't fucking fake that, dude. I mean, no other actor or actress in the world could have delivered that truth in the way it needed to be done, and it was you.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, it was very satisfying to like believe in something, choose that over something technically better or bigger. and have that impact people in the way it did. It would have been cool if it was like, yeah, and even more episodes and turned into even more, but things like that along the way sort of always confirmed for me that my instinct is right. It's
Yeah.
fucking reason taking longer and a lot harder than I expected, but like I'm not delusional to think that I should do
Well, you're
this.
choosing quality content and characters over paychecks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
too much.
Yeah.
To the point of so many times.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
get, oh my god, the amount of like CW when I was younger and wasn't worried. Like every pilot season, there'd be CW shows like here's your and I'm like, no. Now I'm like,
Yeah.
what was I thinking? I just wanted to like buy ramen the next year. I was crazy.
Doing this episode from your penthouse at the Bowery Hotel.
Exactly. So crazy. But
Well,
I did it.
So then when you're this indie darling and you have films like Gimme Shelter and that awkward moment, you know, and then I imagine at some point you have a dialogue with your agent and you're like, look, you know, we need to fucking tactically shift it up. You know, what was your plan then? You know, did you, I mean, I know you did the leftovers and that became a big thing, but you know, was that, did they help? And did you start positioning yourself differently, or what got you through it, I guess is my question.
I don't know if I'm through it yet, but
you are. Yeah.
I think it's been just like a slow and steady accumulation because it wasn't like something like the leftovers. It wasn't like any shift in, it was just more like it made sense and it was like the right role at the right. I mean, that wasn't like my dream job. I remember from the beginning being like, I don't know, but as far as the role, not the show, but it was like I had been kind of had the corner market. I'm like being like the like sort of Lolita, sexy but troubled, wise beyond her years, but tragic, funny. What I had like that was like something I knew how to do, and it was like a version of doing that. What that was an indie that was on an HBO show, so it was just kind of like a good combination of things. And then same with The Deuce, which came after it, of like the qualities that people whatever saw me with, or that I was like that was the easiest for me to tap into. It was just more that they were like I worked my way up as far as like the level of what those roles were.
Yeah.
But it was none of those things. I'd say now I've been trying to make more of a shift. Then it was more like it just naturally happened. I would complain all the time, and I still do, but I wasn't like that wasn't a career move. It was just like then the leftovers came up and I got that part, and you know, and these things just kind of happened.
And then in those indies that you kind of did after like Nerve and Trial by Fire, and which would I wouldn't call that an indie. That's an awesome movie. You know, that do you feel like you sort of got pigeonholed into that kind of damaged, you know, sexy, chic, you know, heroine-esque look, you know?
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah. And it's funny because I've in my career, and I feel like so many actors say this, and it's kind of and like half the time you're like, is that even true? But I've like almost been like the whatever, like big thing, the big franchise a million times, and it's always felt like there's just something that's like a little bit dark or a little bit weird, a little bit quirky in a way that people haven't exactly known what to do with me. So when it came to the like being the like sexually intimidating, tragic, fuck up, but like charming, whatever thing, that's like been a safe whatever role for me that people can process me as and make sense of. But I think for years I kept being like, okay, this is the last time I'm gonna this is the last time I'm gonna do it. Until now I've just had to like really be like, I'm not doing it anymore, and now I haven't worked in over a year and a half because of it. So it's been COVID as well.
Well, that's the thing that sucks about Hollywood is like they want to see you do something well, and they want to see you do it so well that they just put you in it again, and then they only see you as that. And then in order to succeed, you have to change it up, but nobody wants to give you the chance to change it up, you know?
Exactly. People are not very creative or brave when it comes to that, and they just want to do the exact thing that they know works. And I don't feel like when I've been up for those like big whatever lead franchise things, I can always tell I'm like the not safe choice, you know, like
Yeah.
there's like this, and then there's like, oh, we could go here. And it takes even something like Nerve, which was actually like it was a studio movie, but it was like, you know, smaller and enough like people, didn't become a huge hit. But even that, they had like the studio had a list of like pop star girls or whatever, and the directors on that who are still in my life like did push to put me in it, but like it takes people actually like pushing
Yeah.
for you, and that wasn't the lead. So like they had Emma Roberts, who was already, you know, a name in that way, and they were able to push to have me be in that. But it's been, I think that's why when the older directors who are now all deceased, like I think like Joel Schumacher and Wes Craven were fine to cast me right from the beginning because they didn't give a shit anymore, and they were already like
they're doing it their way, you know. Fuck that.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, but I've had a lot harder of a time with the younger people who are still trying to make a name for themselves, who are just like desperate to get their movies made or desperate to have their movies make money, and are just afraid to take a risk. And I think I am inevitably a risk unless you're putting me as like the risky
Right
thing. Then it's
fuck.
Yeah. So it's been but I think just like with anything, it takes until you're like truly putting your foot down and saying no until because like it took me a while to realize like, oh yeah, no one else is going to say like, oh, I think Emily's outgrown this or she should do, like, I just have to demand that. It's not going to come from anybody else. So
well, we're gonna get you in a fucking comedy, but before we jump away from that, you know, obviously it's one of the greatest roles, and it's I would say the greatest television writer, if not one of the greatest writers in the world. When you got that phone call that David Simon was interested in you, and for one more of those sort of roles, it's a hard thing to turn down. You know, like was there a moment of like, I don't know, or, you know, because of who was in it, was it like, I'm going to fucking do this?
Yeah, you'd probably be surprised or people would be surprised by the amount of trepidation because of the role. Basically the process of that was I had originally auditioned and then like I chemistry read with James for the part that Margarita Laviva wound up playing. Who was kind of like written as like the central girl who was obviously not a hooker, she wasn't a sex worker.
Yeah.
First I auditioned for Candy, the Maggie Gyllenhaal.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, very different. Then I was testing for the Margarita role, and then I never actually auditioned or read for Laurie, who I wound up playing. And it was the smallest.
David know your work? Like, was that how that? I mean, because you've done so much work for HBO.
Yeah, he did see some of Leftovers, but I didn't even think that was like the best representation of me. But I think I guess he said, basically I didn't get either of those roles. And then he apparently like, he reached out to my people asking if he could have dinner with me and was saying like,
that's amazing.
Yeah, I know. It's funny. I hadn't seen The Wire, so I don't think I was as.
Oh, you didn't know?
I knew it was. I knew it was a big deal, but I don't think I probably would have freaked out way more had I. Like I was like able to. Thank God. I probably would have been too nervous.
For sure.
Grateful and asking like sure.
The one audition I had for The Deuce, I was just so nervous when I went to Alexa's office because I was like, David Simon.
Exactly. No, it's really, it sucks, but it's like with dating or jobs, it's like if you're too eager and excited, it's just like it's so hard. It's hard not to be if you are a fan. So I was, thank God, I just didn't know enough. Now, yeah, I'd be same with. I mean, it's so funny. This is a side nit, but like I just watched Sopranos for the first time. I'm obsessed with it, but it's so funny because I've known so many of the actors on that show. I'm like, how is I not so starstruck? I'm like, I need to come out with them. So yeah, with David, like I knew he was a big deal, but I didn't personally have a connection to it. But so we wound up having dinner, and he was saying he wanted me to be on the show, and he basically gave me the option of 2 roles that were both really small in the like Laurie was not a big role, and it wound up getting far more expanded than necessarily was even planned. Like a lot more came of it. But he was like, these are the 2 roles, and then he was saying basically like he gave me like the overall like what happens to each one, and one had a happy ending and one had a sad ending, and I was like, well, which do you think is more impactful? And he was like, I mean, a sad ending.
Yeah, of course.
Like, okay, I guess I choose that one. But so it was still like as much as I was wanting to move away from the tragedy, it was like either way on that show, that's what that was going to be. But I was really nervous. I remember going and talking to my friend Phil after and being like, am I going to like, again, I was basically signing up to be naked, to be sad, to have a tragic ending. But it was, and I feel like that happens a lot with people's careers. You're like, I'm not going to do it anymore, but then like the best version of it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So I was like, oh, fuck, like whatever. So obviously I wound up doing it. And yes, it was hard to say no to David Simon. And again, the best version of it. And I think but I did. I think I had issues, and David knows. I mean, yeah, we were in very close communication for a lot of that show, and me wanting to expand it creatively, and I did appreciate that. I felt like they did notice my whatever comic leanings and definitely did right to that. Like they allowed for there to be some levity and some irony and comedy in there. That was nice to have. In the third season, David asked me if there's anything I wanted to do, and I said I wanted to sing. So he let me sing. Like
nice.
Yeah, like there was. It turned into
there was a collaboration there.
Yeah, it turned into a much larger experience than just playing the, sad or complex sex thing. But I think that's why for me now I haven't done anything since, because the only things that are coming towards me are that, and like for me, I think that was really putting it to bed. Like also, I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but she has a full beginning, middle, and end, and it felt like a very cathartic experience to have that character have a kind of very final conclusion. And I felt like it really was like that part of me, that whatever that tragic thing in me keeps getting this, like that stays with Lori in the Deuce, and I'm going to move forward without that. So yes, I was trepidatious about it, and I was nervous doing it again, but it was like, okay, maybe this is what the other things were practice for this, and then I do this, and then I move on. Then
are you glad you did it?
Yes. I definitely had moments in the beginning that I was like, what the fuck did I get myself into? But it turned into one of the most significant experiences of my life. So yes, absolutely, I'm very glad I did it. Yeah.
And I mean, obviously I don't think there's been articles about it, but you don't get the credit that you deserve. Like you fucking changed the game with the intimacy coordinator. That was Emily Meade. Like that's changed the entire way this industry operates. I mean, do you have like this? I mean, that's Titanic, dude. Like that's crazy. I mean, how does it feel to produce such an amazing shift and a positive thing for so many actors and artists, and particularly vulnerable females? You know what I mean? Like you changed it.
Thank you. Yeah, it feels very good. And it's definitely the thing I'm proudest of in my career, like above anything, above any work. And that's part of what made The Deuce such a life-changing experience, not just the characters or the character or whatever, the acting and the creative of it, but it sort of did. I mean, as far as talk about catharsis, it was like my whole career, there'd been so much pain and disappointment and yes, feeling mistreated and feeling resentful of my own sexuality and like my own relationship with my career, myself, that it was such a wild experience to like actually use my voice for something productive, have it make a difference, have it make an impact, and have it
change the game,
change something, and it made it, all kind of worth it. Of like, oh well, I wouldn't have had this idea. Period. Not that I invented intimacy coordinators, but I didn't know they existed at all.
Yeah.
Alicia Rodas invented that. But I wouldn't have asked for that. I wouldn't have had these ideas if I didn't have the experience of always playing the sex object and having a lot of pain attached to that. So I did feel like an expert in that. And I did feel like I put in the hours to that to know what was wrong with it and what I needed it to be different. And my first instinct when everything was going on and it wasn't going well was just like to kind of run away with the dude, but to then instead like actually have evolution and turn it into something was like a profound experience on all, like in my career and just in my life of like, oh, like it's so cheesy, but it's like, oh, you can make a difference in the world. Like, that's all I wanted. Like, that's why I wanted to be an actor. So ironically, it wasn't even a role that I played, but like I got to use being an actor to make an impact in the world. And that is what I wanted to do. So that definitely like recharged me and stopped me from like just quitting the industry, because I was like, well, sure, it's sucked how much I've been felt objectified, or like I've had to limit myself to play these roles, but that in and of itself is what allowed me to make this change. So it was for a reason. And so that, yeah, I want to do more things. I like it. It made everything worth it in a way that, yeah, that was the first experience I've had in this industry of feeling really proud and like it all was leading to something. So
I'm so proud of you. I mean, you thank you for your service, and so let's talk about this like new chapter. Wanting to switch it up. I fucking love that, and you're gonna crush it in comedy. I know it. Has it been more you getting, because like I know so much of it is like being on there are a lot of obviously there's like Seth Rogen, but there's a lot of comedy writers that are staff writers that go around to all the different comedy shows. And for you switching from that specific of a character and an arc and type, how have you been, I guess, navigating this transition?
I mean, probably not that deliberate. Like, I mean, I'm like, oh, I should probably do like comedy shows or something. More, I mean, the first step has been clarifying what I want, period. Being clear about it, being not embarrassed about it. Cause I feel like there's so much gaslighting in this industry of like making you feel foolish for wanting anything, kind of, or like wanting more than you're getting, or wanting something different. And I think probably the process of I mean, not only being on a series for 3 years, obviously like teaches you a lot and strengthens not just your creative, your work ethic, but like your understanding of the machine it is of telling a story and of a show. Like you just learn a lot. And I think that gave me a lot of confidence to then start being way clearer. Because yeah, I feel like there'd be like little whispers of like, well, I'd rather do this, whatever. But like now I've gotten to the point with my team where I'm just like, I do not want to do this. I want this, and I'm not nervous about it. And it's weird. And my manager actually pointed this out to me the other day, because I've felt so I've just been it's been COVID. I had a horrific breakup. I haven't worked in a year and a half. Like it's been a hard moment. And when I'm complaining, like I've had a few comedy things actually that I've been really close on, and they haven't worked out, and I've been like hysterical and like, oh god, nothing's ever gonna happen. And what he reminded me of, which I was like, oh, that's a good point, he's like, please keep in mind that like all you've done is say you want to do comedy now, and like suddenly you're like testing for your own comedy shows, like with nothing on your resume even implying you can do comedy. So clearly you can manifest whatever the fuck it is. Like you can get what you want. You just like, it's not a sign of your fit, because I'm very hard on myself, obviously.
I get it, man.
But I'm like, I'm seeing it as like, see, I'll never get what I want, versus like, oh yeah, how am I even in the position where I'm testing for a comedy when like no one, why? But so I'm trying to see it more as a strength in that way. So yeah, I'm not really doing anything that different business wise. I'm just like focusing my energy differently, and it seems to be almost working, I guess.
Coming around in due time. Yeah.
And again, it's a lot of it's just saying no, which I think I've heard before, but and it's so hard because I feel like I'm like a beggar and a chooser at the same time, because I'm like, I fucking want to work. I'm going to go crazy. But then they send me a script. I'm like, nope, not on that.
Been there, done that.
Yeah. But it's true. And like, it's like, well, I've waited this long. It's been this kind of long of a process in my career. I did just come off of a 3-year show. So like, I mean, it's been a year and a half now, and that show was 5 years, really, the process of it. So I'm going to commit myself to something again. Like, I think I've earned something I want. And it's obviously an even more complex time in the industry right now, and everyone's trying to figure out how to fucking do anything. It feels like
I know.
So it's I think at this point so much of it's just saying no, I almost feel like I'm protesting sometimes. I'm almost
No,
being
but that's beautiful.
yeah, like you're not going to get me to be in anything unless you give me what I want.
But you have to pull those lines, man.
Yeah,
Otherwise, no one will listen.
yeah, it's
And set your ground and set your standards, and that's fucking amazing, Emily. That's so rad. Like,
you.
I'm so happy for you, and it's coming. I feel it.
Thank you. Yeah, it'd be cool. Although I also keep switching around because I do. Yes, I want to do something funny, but also just like more well. It doesn't have to be like a straight up comedy. Because I then was watching The Sopranos for the first time finally, and then I told my manager, I'm like, well, I also kind of want like my own Sopranos. Like, or
It's like a dark comedy at times. Yeah,
like,
yeah,
he's like, we're not gonna like not send you a Sopranos. Like,
yeah,
and I was like, I'm like, maybe I want that instead. I'm like, I just want more sides to the character. Like, I just want more elements. And yes, some moments of, I mean, yes, there's some moments in there that James Gandolfini's like a fucking brilliant comedian. And
tight, man. Yeah, that's amazing. And speaking of, you just hit on the pandemic. Like it has been a year and a half, and I know it's like I've been on fucking, I don't know, 100 auditions since September, and maybe a pin or callback or two, but nothing. You know what I mean? I just like feel like I'm pissing in the wind, and we've been in a pandemic, and I love what you're doing with Everything's Fucked. Like, I think that's so fucking awesome. Where did the idea for that come from?
Yeah, that is, so me and my best friend Eliza, who are doing it together, we've been best friends since we were 6, and we've kind of just always, like I said, on my end, I was like, I'm gonna be a star and do this. She kind of had the same thing, and we just both, since we were kids, like we're creating plays together or writing, but like we did.
Was she the one in the therapy thing with you?
Oh no, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, and she's also still they've been friends because of like they know each other because of me. But no, I had my like 2 best friends from then, and they're still my best friends. And yeah, I'm very proud of my female friendships in that way. But no, her and I did I don't think we did an official performing thing together, but we went to middle school together. But that's not this, like we went there on purpose. That's not the same. But we would do stuff in our own time. And I remember like when we first got email, we're like, oh, let's write a book where we're like, I don't know if you remember, but when we were kids, I feel like fake diaries were very popular.
Oh yeah.
So we were like, oh, let's write a thing where we're like pen pals, like character pen pals. So we'd like write each other letters as like Leah and Zia as like characters. So we were always just sort of like had these collaborations in the works, and have always, we play off each other really well. We also like invented each other's personalities in a lot of ways because we influenced each other. And we always wanted to do something. And then she became a very successful astrologer, and I'm an actress. And then
that's where the astrology comes from.
Yeah, that's like her job, and she's written books. She's a very successful at it. And then I was like the first time I saw her in the pandemic, and we were talking, and then she said when she left, like us hanging out had reminded her of when we were kids like that, and she was just like, we should just do like, oh, because I'm not good with the like Instagram or the tech stuff.
Yeah,
way more savvy in that way. So she was like, we should do an Instagram live show of something, and then we like talked for like 10 minutes, and we were like, oh yeah, we could do like an advice show. And it was just very natural and easy because that's sort of how we always are. So we just started trying to do it, and then it's been really fun, and people have had really good responses. And then people are interested in possibly making it a podcast.
Yeah, you should.
Figuring that out now. So yeah, it was one of those things that's like kind of the opposite of everything else in my career, which I'm like always jealous of those people that are like, yeah, I just like was playing football and I broke my ankle, so I joined the drama club, and then I was a movie star. Like,
yeah,
it was like my whole life I was like, I want to be an actor. But this podcast is sort of the cool version of like, we were just fucking around because it was fun before you know it.
Yeah.
So that's nice to maybe have something like that finally for once.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just sort of.
Well, it's such a beautiful space you have for, the people that write in, and I love what you're doing. It's, it's funny and it's positive and it's fucking radical, man. It's a great idea, and I would love to see that in a long form podcast.
Yeah, we're like in the middle of figuring that out, and that's been another sort of like, just like the intimacy coordinator was another thing of like, oh yeah, like if we just use our voice, like it can people like it was also like people came to us about it versus us going to other people, which I'm like, I don't
Oh,
last time I wasn't like begging somebody to let me do something.
yeah, the life of an
So,
actor.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
so cool. So yeah, it's just yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens with it, but it's definitely saved my life since we've been doing it in code because yeah, it's like
This is all I've been doing, so I get it. You know, it's like
life,
fucking
truly life saving.
yeah. That you're keeping me sane. So
Yeah.
that's amazing. Well, dude, it's been so amazing hearing your story. A few final questions for you. I know we sort of just hit on this with the podcast, but the pandemic has fucking sucked. It's been horrible for people that are actors or people that are artists or, I mean, just horrible for anyone, really. I can't limit it to that. But what's kept Emily sane? What's kept you going? What's kept you fighting that fight and sticking to your guns about wanting what you want and not conceding? Because I think that's fucking so badass, dude.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I've come very close to the edge many times over this pandemic, but I think it's, I don't know, I think it's been a culmination of like kind of all of the things I've been learning and all the self work I've been doing being truly put to the test in a vacuum in a way that I don't know, I've gotten to focus on things in with silence around it, which is obviously really hard and maddening, but I think in some ways it's yeah helped. It's like it almost feels like a version of rehab or something where you're like truly just like there focusing on, like I've been in therapy twice a week and I've been doing a lot of self work in a
Yeah.
really isolated way, which is hard, but also I think has helped get a lot of stuff done. And I think it's just oddly like deepened my sense of what I want and belief in myself. And it's weird because it's both. Because part of me is like, oh God, I'm never going to work again. And part of me is like, no, I know who I am. I know what I want. I know what I want
Yeah.
out of a relationship. I know what I want out of a job. Like, and I deserve it. And obviously that's tested weekly, but I think that's just deepened. I think as I mentioned, was in a bad relationship that I got out of, which I think was a turning point for me. And then, yeah, just being with myself, doing the work, doing everything's fucked, like having to find new outlets and new channels of sanity, like other than just socializing or commiserating. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I've just had to find like, even I never painted or drew or anything, and I've been like painting and drawing, and I'm not even good at it.
So cool.
I just like I don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
So I think that has I don't know. It's again, I guess it's like whatever that thing in you that like still wants to live when you feel really dark gets almost stronger when there's truly nothing else to hold on to. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I've definitely had days of like it's hard to get out of bed or function, and then I've had days of like drawing pictures and then doing everything's fucked and like I've never exercised my whole life. I hate it. I'm now boxing once a week for the
Dude, fucking congrats, man. That's so awesome, man.
I can't believe I didn't do before. Like I have such anger problems, and so like I can't. I'm like it's so helpful, and
I'm the cliche CrossFit bro, and that's how I get these demons out,
yeah.
And
Yeah, well, especially as I mentioned, I no longer drink alcohol, and that was obviously a huge tool I used to suppress the demons. And I think, yeah, the longer I go not doing that, the more I also am like doing a thing where you have to find other.
yeah, as an addict myself, it's you got to replace it with healthier things like painting and boxing and
Yeah,
starting a podcast with your best friend,
yeah, it's just amazing because you see like this. It's like you can't predict what you're going to do if you eliminate something for your life, but like just different pathways open up, and then those pathways lead somewhere else and lead somewhere else. And yeah, I don't sometimes I don't know how I've survived or how anyone survived, but and I guess it also makes us all have to really take it one day at a time in that way that I think also there has been something comforting about, like, obviously, as you know, being an actor, like, your life is so inconsistent. So there's been something kind of cool about everybody having that.
Yeah.
Like, to an
Yeah.
extreme, sure, but like
Yeah.
we've all had weeks and weeks of like having nothing to do. So it's kind of been nice that like the world has gotten so much more vulnerable. Like it's like even like anyone I see now, like there's no more small talk. Everybody's just like a bleeding heart in a way that
Yeah.
I've always been a bleeding heart. And now it's just like, I don't know, there's like a different type of connection that we're all in this together in a way that's also, yeah, helped me. But, and TV, Sopranos also kept me grounded. Now I'm watching Married at First Sight, way less of a high level of art, but it's also really interesting.
I just did 6 Feet Under.
Okay. Oh, great.
Yeah. I love that one. Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like weight. It feels like deepening my appreciation for like watching Sopranos was the first thing to inspire me acting wise in a really long time. That's
wow.
Like there's something to do.
That's amazing. Well, final question, for that young Emily that, knew she was going to be a movie star, and you could go back and, for anyone listening that's an artist and, maybe doesn't live in New York, any words of wisdom or advice you would have for them?
I mean, you trust your gut. I mean, I know that's kind of obvious, but it's gonna it'll probably be harder than you expect. And I feel like people never have the career they set out to have. It feels like you have someone else's career and someone else has yours, but to trust your gut and follow that. And if you feel like that's what you're meant to do, I believe that you are right, but it's probably not going to look how you expected it to, and just keep going and follow your gut and let that take you where it takes you, and don't fight against whatever the path that opens up for you is. Like, accept that what that is. It's very messy, clunky advice, but
it's beautiful and very articulate. And
thank you.
It's been such a fucking pleasure, man. Like, you're a superstar, Emily. The comedy thing is coming. I'm gonna turn on Deadline. I'm gonna read it, and I'm just gonna fucking be so thrilled for you. And you got to come back, and we'll talk about the comedy thing. Because it's happening. I feel it. I'm putting it out there.
Comedy or Sopranos, which is sort of
an amalgamation. We'll do. A musical Sopranos.
Exactly. I love to see Sopranos. That would actually be really cool. Yeah.
Emily Meade, I got so much love for you. Thanks for coming on. Stay in touch and keep grinding, man.
Thank you so much.
All right, rock and roll.
All right.
I am thrilled to announce that An Actor Despairs is partnering with a wonderful CBD company called Kind Farms. Everyone out there has heard of CBD. I started taking it a few years ago when I first started getting sober and to help with my anxiety. Sadly, as one can do, I was overtraining in the gym, and a friend recommended a topical and a tincture to help with the pain. I tried it. It was okay. However, recently, I was introduced to a product that has really changed my life. Not only has it helped me with anxiety, but I am stronger than I have ever been. I'm able to carry out lifts my body used to prevent me from doing. Kind Farm products have single-handedly changed my life athletically and personally. They utilize 100% local licensed farmers, organic cultivation, and CO2 extraction for superior CBD. Kind Farms is turning CBD to a kind alternative to pharmaceuticals. Let's transform Tobacco Row into Hemp Row. If you want to get involved, please reach out. Together, we can make a difference. You can use my code RYAN10 for 10% off. You can find them on Instagram at Kind Farms Inc., all one word. That's KINDPHARMSINC, and their website is kindfarmsinc.com. Once again, my code for 10% off is Ryan.